It would seem as though.
Hi.
It would seem as though we are back for another week of It Would Seem As Though, the podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and nothing.
Mostly nothing.
Not
but today,
though.
actually really something.
I know today we're talking about death.
Death and death. Well, yes, death and how to be a worker of death. I don't know.
A worker of death. That sounds like you're killing people.
Well, a
harbinger of death.
I'm not
She's
here.
going around murdering people. It's we all know what happens someday. I'm Vesta.
I'm Annika. And our guest today is... Da-da-da-da-da-da. You could have done a drum roll at that point.
Where's my machine? Wait, where's my sound effects machine?
Please.
Noise.
5 hours
effects.
later.
Hang on. This is why we are the top-rated podcast in our house.
Your husband, Mr. T! Woo!
Y'all's crazy.
Yeah. I'm glad that you did it at an appropriate time today.
I know. I decided to leave my new mouse in the bag because it's tricky for some reason, because it's not your typical little rolling. It's a car, and so if I even touch it wrong, it does crazy things, and so whatever.
Right.
So today we're going to talk about what happens after you die.
Sure. Yep.
And not the spiritual part, the actual business part of what happens,
Yeah.
like how you go from here to the grave or the wherever you're
The
going.
great beyond.
The great beyond.
Yeah.
And we're doing that with my husband, who is a
Mordican.
an embalmer. What?
A Mordican.
A Mordican.
He's a Mortish.
But as usual, we want to talk about a couple little things before we get started in our actual topic.
Yeah.
And since you're here with us, Papa, you're more
If you have any great...
welcome to throw in your things.
Your
or sit there
favorite news
quietly
things.
and shake your head because you think we're crazy, which is all fine.
Yeah.
And all true. So one of the things I was driving the other day, taking my kids to, where were we going? Oh, right, we were going to return Parker's trumpet because he's decided that band life is not for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever. But I saw a sign that instantly transported me back to 1973. So in 1973, because I'm the only one here old enough to know this, there was a gas shortage.
Okay.
And I just learned the other day that shortage was actually, like most things, caused by political nonsense.
It was created. It wasn't actual shortage.
It was, right.
It was a manufactured
challenge. It was OPEC saying, well, we're not going to send you oil and blah, 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 blah. So whatever.
Love that.
But in that time period, you were in long, long lines to get gas.
Weird.
And then there was this whole thing of this odd even system. If your license plate was an odd number, you could go on this day, and if it was an even number, you could go on this day.
What in the fuck?
But I remember sitting in gas lines, and the prices had also skyrocketed.
Okay.
Which, nothing like they are now, because of course this was,
But inflation.
50 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so, but as I was driving the other day, I saw this sign that says, steal gas, get shot.
What?
Yep. Because when you're paying $5 a gallon, as we are now, for gas, people take it pretty seriously, and people are stealing gas because, of course, it's $5 a gallon for gas. Well, back then, there were signs everywhere saying that.
Weird.
Basically, some iteration of that.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, if you steal my gas, I'm going to shoot you.
I mean,
People were also doing things like they were electrifying their gas cap so that it was hooked up to so that you would get shocked.
I just feel like that could go awry. Could it not?
Right. Well, yes. It was also illegal, by the way. So if you electrified your own gas cap to make it so that you would be the one in trouble when they got hurt.
Yeah, because that seems, I don't know, that's weird to me.
Right. And this is also when locking gas caps kind of became a thing.
Oh, okay.
It's like shortly after that, because people were like, what can I do? People are stealing my gas in the night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and but it was interesting how that just took me right back to 1973.
What a great time to be alive.
Being 11 years old and wondering what the hell's going on with this crazy world.
Girl, what's gas?
Yeah.
11 years old, you're like, have you seen these gas prices today in this economy?
In this economy, not this. How dare they? How dare they steal my gas?
Right, exactly.
that was one thing. The other thing was just a funny thing. So every morning that the alarm is set, which is Monday through Friday, for T to get up and go to work and do his job at the funeral home, the alarm goes off to music. It's his iPod. And it was the other morning, it was the Beastie Boys. Okay. You got to fight for the right to party.
Right.
What immediately jumped into my head was how funny it was that it was a pack of white men talking about what rights they had to fight for.
Yeah.
Because white men, as we've discussed before, have never had to fight for any rights.
Right.
Because they're the only people on Earth who have been given every right or have taken every right and told all the rest of us that you have to...
Yeah.
You have to, earn it or you're not worthy of it.
Well, and it's like
the
only like redeeming identity. They think like, well, you're gay, but you're white. Or you're poor, but you're white. It's always like, but you're white. There's that mentality behind it. Right.
But it was just funny to me because I've heard that song a bajillion times, obviously. But it just never occurred to me until that very moment. I was like, that's the right you're going to fight for?
Sometimes young people just feel oppressed by the man,
It's like, if I don't get some booze and some whatever and
some brass monkey,
whatever that is, right? I don't even understand what that is. But
I think it's a drink.
Is it a drink?
Yeah, a brass monkey's a drink. I know. I'm looking at you like you drink ever. Right. I think it's alcohol.
Well, you know what a drunkie is. You know Annie. She's a drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I do. And so, but not that that's apropos of anything. It just made me laugh and. My brain was going, poor white guys.
I know.
Those poor white men with their lack of rights.
Oppression.
They are oppressed.
It is indeed a cocktail.
Huh.
What is it?
It's 1 part dark rum, 1 part orange juice, 1 part vodka.
I'm leaving.
Okay, well, go whip us up one real quick and we'll see if it's worth the fight.
No, I can't do that.
No?
Those are 2 different songs. Don't mix them.
Well,
no, I know. But I was saying, maybe they needed the brass. Yeah, they're needing the drink, the brass monkey.
Right, and so then once they got it, they sang about it.
And they're like, this funky Okay, continue. We're over the fucking Beastie Boys.
I was also going to share with you something a little funny. T's friend, I can't speak. Words are hard. His friend, Ash, who, loves our pod.
Sure. Hi, hello, it's
Ash,
you, and it's me.
Was over here the other day, and it was so cute to me. She goes, so show me where it is that y'all record the podcast, because I want to know where it is so I can visualize. And now she knows. It's right here at this very fancy recording studio.
In this nice office
known as
building.
Our dinner table.
Yeah, that's just what we call it.
So I hope that didn't ruin the mystery.
She was like, and it's disgusting now. I hate it. You white trash Bettys. I'm out.
I know. Just sit at this dinner table,
but
where you eat your food.
It's a marbled dinner table, so
with our faux marble plastic tablecloth,
with the tablecloth that says large apparatus on it in Northern
Europe. What does that
Europe.
even mean?
I don't know. You bought it.
It's so funny to me. So our tablecloth
is weird.
Has pictures of succulents
down the center,
and the rest of it looks, it's like marble and whatever.
Like white marble.
But then it just says the words around the. Succulents are large apparatus.
Like beautiful script, large apparatus in Northern Europe. What? What the fuck are you talking about?
What makes me wonder if this was maybe made in China.
Could be.
Because every once in a while you'll get things where the English didn't quite translate.
Yeah.
I remember, and we've laughed about this a bajillion times, that when Kinley was little, we had a bib that said childhood. And funny.
I love that.
We're like...
No.
So it's just funny.
Yeah.
Just the randomness of it all. Anyway, all of that randomness aside, today we are talking about the business that is like funerals.
The business
and
of
how
death.
You get prep for funerals and the business of death. The business of death. So we have some questions, and then our good friend,
my mother-in-law,
Annika's mother-in-law, Lori Lee, sent in some questions.
Yes,
friend of the pod. She listens all the time.
Yeah,
and now we know she listens while she's drinking the wine and
which
making
is
the dinner.
even better.
So, because I imagine we're much better when you're drunk.
I mean, yeah, neither of us.
House of Booze were way funnier.
Listen, when I listen to the podcast, I also don't drink, but I think we're hysterical, so I can just imagine.
I usually listen to it whilst I'm driving to work.
Okay.
Because I listen to it either the next day or maybe a day or two later.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've already forgotten some of the things we talk about well,
Right.
because I'm old. And so that happens. But
I listen to it while I'm sweeping out the crematory in the morning.
Oh my god, perfect.
Right.
What a good segue. That was brilliant. Did
that
you
was
see that?
brilliant.
He's like,
I
back
got that
to
right
me.
right into the, we're here to talk to me and
Yeah.
about me and my business. And
love
so,
that.
Yeah, because that's life.
Yeah, that's how you function as a person.
right.
You're all attention
Indeed.
all the time.
And so please welcome our very first guest, my husband, Mr. T.
Hi.
I don't know.
That time I hit the button on purpose.
I know. I'm proud
Only
of him.
mildly uncomfortable to
I-
have your daughter.
I know.
wolf
I
whistle
was
at you.
I was trying to make it seem like a real audience. Okay, did it seem
If it
authentic?
was a real audience, they'd be like, "Boo! Get off the
Boo,
stage!"
you whore. Yeah,
Next.
exactly. Okay.
Because
Also true.
not that I've ever had that happen to me.
No, because you're just so
Because
great.
I'm so
at
great
everything.
and so perfect. But again, we're not here to talk about me. So
What did you just say?
I know, it's hard to believe, but
Alexa, put this on the
so
calendar.
the very first question I have for you is, how did you get into this profession?
Some lady pushed me into it. Really,
Is this some lady?
some random
Some
lady.
white lady.
No, a million years ago, when Vesta was looking for a job for herself because the salon she was working at was closing, I was not looking for a job. I was happy as a clam at the Humane Society. She was looking for a job for herself and said, "Oh my God, I found the perfect job for you." Now, I'm expecting it to be like a stripper
Yeah.
or some
Goofy thing.
something that I would never in a million years do. And she says, picking up dead people and cremating. And I paused. I'd never been to a funeral, never dealt with death at all, except for at the Humane Society. And said, "Oh my God, I would love that." Now, the funny part of the story is I've told the story a million times, but I always forget to say, no, I did not take that job. But it did get me on my way of looking into what it would take to be an embalmer and to be in the business and all that stuff.
So it was interesting to me.
that.
I didn't realize, or I didn't remember, that up to that point you'd never been to a funeral.
Nope. I'd never had
That's-
anybody in my life that I knew die.
So what's interesting to me is like that's the opposite, right? Because by the time I was in my 20s, literally like everyone I knew had died. I felt like
Same.
I had killed everybody, right? Like I just so much.
I
died.
wasn't personally responsible for any of their deaths.
At some point, though,
However,
as a teenager, I felt like, is it me? Like, am I the
Right.
one? Like, are these people dying around me for a reason? Like, because I didn't know. People just were dying so much. I was
Right.
confused. I was a confused child.
Right.
But yeah, so it's interesting that you were like then drawn to it.
Yeah.
I do
As an
remember though
adult.
that we actually looked into that job and it paid like a pittance. It was like, yeah, that won't work.
You get to
It still
keep what
does.
you get to keep whatever's on the dead body. That's what you
Shake
get
them down.
paid.
Put some quarters in the
I-
pocket. They're all yours.
You're like, I don't want any of that.
No.
Thank you so much, though.
No.
So I'm going to do mine, and then I'll have you do one. Is
Okay.
How, as a rule, how do people react when you tell them what you do for a living?
There's no rule. Most people that I'm willing to share that with, because I'm very particular about who I'll talk about it with, because I don't want to talk to strangers.
So yeah.
Fair.
So
Right.
I try to avoid, like, at coffee windows when people say, "Oh, where are you going?" or "What you doing today?" And if I have to try to remember to lie about if I came from work or I'm going to work.
Yeah.
Because they go, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And then
Yeah.
I have to answer it, and then no.
Yeah.
Nothing you know about talking at the window. at all.
No, but that same situation, I asked someone, and you know who she is because she worked at Lincoln, the
Oh, yeah.
manager or whatever. And I was like, "Where are you going?" The one time I'm at window, right? And it's a mortician or
Oh, right.
And I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
"Where are you
That
going?"
was
And she was
Crystal,
like,
I think.
"Yeah." And she was like, "Oh, I work at a funeral home." I'm like, "Oh my god, do you know T via Patten-Dunn?" And like literally, she was like, "Yeah, how do you?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it." But it was very interesting that conversation.
super secret, I can't tell
I
you.
can't tell you. But yeah, it was interesting that conversation and she seemed a little like,
Right.
like, well,
You gotta steer
this is
yourself
what I
for
am. I did right.
Yeah, so I get some people that are like, "Oh my god, that sounds really cool," but a lot of like, I could never do that.
And you're like, that's why I do.
Right. So
Yeah. Grass.
Right.
But people who know me, I mean, they know what I do already.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And people who I'm really going to open up and share with, I kind of already know what to expect from them.
And I just feel like if anyone knows you and knows the family or knows who we are, it's like you're already the Addams family to begin with. Like if
Right.
you weren't an embalmer, people would be like, "What? You do what? You know, you have an office job? Like that would be weird to me."
I do often get a "What's that?" when I say embalmer,
Mm.
and then I have to figure
Sure.
out the short, like I don't want to talk to you, but polite way of saying I take care of dead people. And
Yeah.
put fluid in their bodies.
I take some stuff out and put some stuff in, and then throw you in the ground.
Ew.
I know, gross, right? Okay, so I have a question from Laura Lee.
No.
It's, are there burial forests in Oregon for ashes? And I know that ashes isn't like the term that we should use. So I don't
What's
know.
funny that you say that is because I have a note to adjust that
Okay.
phrase to
Yeah.
cremated remains.
Okay.
In the industry, and oftentimes we'll call the cremated remains like to their loved one their person's name. Like,
Oh.
I have your dad's urn here.
Got
or,
it.
You know,
Yeah,
whatever, and by name.
Yeah.
Not traditionally just.
Here are the
cremated remains.
ashes.
Yeah. In business, we don't say cremains, or we don't shorten that because it's out of respect of.
Makes
you know,
sense.
what-
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know
what we
that.
have. Yeah.
And I also think probably like, you know, making it like, oh, this person that you loved is just ashes, right? I think
Right.
that would also be sad.
It's like, you know, here I have your father.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here we go. Whatever.
Yeah, when I die, I'm going to be like, you better say ashes when you talk about my dead body. Do you understand? I hope to God you say, here are the ashes of that whore. That would be amazing to me.
But yeah, there are some natural burial grounds. I don't know a lot of specific places. I did a little bit of research into this because we have, and most cemeteries have scattering areas.
Okay.
So there's scattering areas. There's also places where you can bury urns.
Interesting.
Which people sometimes are like, why would you bury an urn? There's a whole lot of reasons that people could do that.
Yeah.
But if you're worried about like the kind of return to nature, there's biodegradable urns.
I love that.
There's scattering tubes if you're wanting to scatter.
Okay, but I have a second question on top of that then. So if it's a biodegradable urn and you are ashes, is that going to harm the earth at all?
No,
Okay.
because if you're trying to grow plants
Yeah.
from cremated remains, it could be difficult in the soil because the pH is off.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you have cremated remains, you got yourself down to the basic
Okay.
elements, basically of human body.
Yeah.
You have bone,
Okay.
and that's most of what you have left.
Okay.
And it's in small fragments.
Because I mean, obviously I know better because I've seen and been around the funeral home more than once, but because I think when I think of ashes, I don't think of cremated remains, right? I think of like in a fireplace or something like that. So when I
right.
think of that, I'm like, is too much of that not good for the earth? But I don't think that it would be super problematic.
No.
This also, though, sorry, but I'm going to lead this into the second question because it has to do with pollution. And the question is, does spreading ashes in ponds, lakes, and bodies of water harm marine life?
No.
Really?
Yes.
I'm shook. See, that was the question I read that I was like, oh, I know the answer. That I would think it would.
Right.
Weird.
So I did some looking into that too.
Yeah.
For a couple of different reasons, and that kind of led into another question that she asked.
Okay.
Well, which I won't go into that, but
Yeah.
we will. The remains themselves are gritty and sand.
Okay.
They're sand and like crushed shell like.
Okay.
So it's in their bone, which is
Yeah.
mostly calcium and other random
Sure.
elements. So there's no harm
Interesting.
in that. Which is why you can go out and scatter in oceans and such.
It's not like illegal. Here.
There, different bodies of water, I'm sure, in
Have
different
laws.
states have different laws.
Sure.
The law in most like sea, ocean is 3 miles out.
Okay.
And I think
Interesting.
mainly because sometimes there's tags that are associated with cremated remains
Mm.
when you scatter. If it's an official scattering thing, they have to go with them. Blah blah blah.
Got it. Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, it's not really a thing.
I
Interesting.
know for me, one of the things that I've always talked about, because I love the idea of not taking up space when you're dead,
Sure. Yep.
which is why I will be,
Same.
cremated when I die. But one of the things that I had seen, and I watched it on some special, was about burial at sea, which they basically, wrap your body and
Just throw you overboard.
just basically, yeah, they just throw you overboard, and you, there's weighted things so it takes you to the bottom,
Interesting.
and everything that you're in is biodegradable, and the fish eat you. The fish eat you.
I love it.
And then you also just naturally...
Awesome.
Yeah, but it's like... But you become part of the ecosystem, which I love that.
I'm all about that. That's great. But
I mean, I know how you're
throwing
the water.
me... Even dead girl, you're not throwing me to the bottom of the ocean. Do you understand me?
I know. We're gonna...
I'm talking like I'm dying before.
We're gonna set you
like,
on fire
soon.
and burn you in a pyre.
You can leave me out on like... Yeah, you can leave me out on like a pedestal out in the wilderness and other animals can eat me and then just come collect my bones after.
Okay.
That's called a sky burial.
Is it still happening?
In certain cultures.
Because they want you to know, Zoroastrianism, which is like ancient Persian culture, that's what they did. Like, left their dead out. They were eaten by scavengers, so they worshipped like vultures. Mm-hmm. And then would bury the bone. They would bury the bones in urns. That's why when you said people bury urns, often they did that.
Oh.
Anyway.
All right. Well, before we go to the next question, we're going to take a
break.
We're going to take a break.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye.
So what's funny when you take a break?
All right, we are back from our little break there, and it's my turn to ask a question.
Oh my god, it is.
So how can you give us the explanation of how you wait? What? Could you explain? Words are hard today. I had a very rough morning.
Oh my god.
I did. I woke up too early. Could you explain the process of embalming? Because, listen, here, I know that we've all seen a movie or two where they are in a funeral home or whatever, and it's usually like something ridiculous, and something goes awry, and fluids are flying everywhere.
And remember,
I'm not saying that can't happen. I don't know. I'm not an embalmer, and I've been.
Our listeners aren't scientists, so... Spark no, dumb it down for me specifically.
So the super basic is that for my own little brain, since I've been doing it for a million years, there's two basic segments of embalming. The first process is arterial embalming, where you're using the circulatory system to push fluid through and push blood out.
Got it. Did you do that simultaneously? Push fluid in and blood?
Because usually your heart, it's the same way your heart pumps blood.
Okay,
so
cool.
Your arteries push blood out to your body.
Okay.
So we put the fluid in. So we're replacing the blood with fluid. So
Got it.
We're pushing the blood through the arteries, and then we open a hole in the vein for the blood to come out.
Do either of these have to be in a specific place?
People have different preferences. The most common is the carotid, which is up by the carotid, using the carotid artery and the jugular vein, which is up to the side of your neck, close to your clavicle. Mm-hmm. I have a preference of the iliac, which is right at your groin.
Oh,
it's closer to the. I mean, I have lots of reasons for that.
Sure.
But that's my preference.
Okay, so there are other places.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you have issues getting fluid and distribution to a certain area, opening the artery and veins in that area.
Okay, interesting.
So there's under where your bicep is, if you feel between your two muscles right there, there's an artery and vein right there. There's lower in your thighs, your femorals. Yeah, there's lots of fun places to go. Anyway, so that's the biggest process and the longest process.
Yeah. Okay, how long does that take? On average?
It depends.
Okay.
Like the actual fluid part can take anywhere as little as like a half an hour.
Oh, wow, okay.
To several hours.
Wow.
Depending on...
Lots of variables.
If they're autopsied, if they're not, how the quality of their arteries and drugs they were taking, whether legal or not.
Sure.
All that stuff.
All the things.
And then the second part is the cavity treatment, which is where we take a long...
this is the part I just learned about.
A long instrument called a trocar and use a system that sucks. So either with using the power of water pressure or the power of electricity. I've never used electric, only used the...
I just imagine the cadavers are all just like doing a little jig. They're electrifying their...
No. But it's real fun, the pressure that builds up, let me tell you.
I don't
and so then we insert it into the abdominal area and get the liquids out of the heart, lungs, the chest cavity.
Okay.
And then turn around and we go down to get the contents of the intestines, the bladder, When we're going up, we get any liquids that are in like the liver or the kidneys, that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
And then we replace that with very concentrated embalming fluid specifically for cavities, so it penetrates tissues more readily than regular embalming fluid does.
Okay, so you just take all the liquid out of all of this, all the liquid and other things out of these organs,
Yes.
and then you put this really hardcore embalming fluid in it,
Yeah.
and then it firms it up.
So it preserves it and firms it up.
Okay. Got it. I hate that. Thanks for that. I'm never
Oh
going
my
to sleep
gosh.
again.
Well, when he explained it to me the other day, and I don't remember why I asked you. I think I heard somebody. Did I see somebody talking about it?
I don't know. I don't.
I
I remember
remember
you
it.
asking about it,
But
I
I-
don't remember why.
But they were talking about. Oh, was it? It might have been the one woman I saw on TikTok who I thought was super disrespectful the way she spoke about dead people.
Oh yes, it was.
But she was talking about taking the trocar, which, in case you don't know what trocar is, it's like a giant, long, kind of almost like a needle, but it's hollow. Anyway, but she was talking
It's
about
like 3/8 of an inch diameter.
just going in, and she's like, we go in and jab around the insides to get all the liquid out and poke all of the organs and blah. And I was like, ew.
I hate
And so I
that.
asked him about that, and he's like, well, yeah, that's exactly what we do. Not quite that violently, as you or whatever.
It's not
'cause you have to be careful.
liposuction, bitch.
Well, I mean, it's,
Kind of,
right? Yeah.
right. So
Yeah, what's funny is I've been doing this, and I still don't like watching somebody else do that part
Yeah, it's
because it's a weird part of the thing. I mean, I have no troubles, I have no issues, none at all.
It just seems aggressive.
But
and
watching
violent.
somebody else do it, it's like, wow.
Does it seem just like I don't know, because I don't know what I would imagine, but I think it'd make me very uncomfortable because I feel like it seems like too aggressive. That should be happening, you
And
know?
I mean, it has to be.
Right? No, right.
'Cause
But that's
you
why I
have
can't
a-
watch like liposuction on
Yeah,
like
it's
surgery.
very much like that.
Because it makes me like you're gonna kill them. I hate it. But this person's
Yeah.
already dead, so
Right.
yellow.
Right.
Well, and they are just on the top layer, so there's not a problem.
Yeah.
They'd have to like aim down and yeah. No.
Right. Your turn.
I hate everything. Okay. Let's
Oh, and
see.
the best part is taking out the gases in there.
What? How do you take out gas?
You
Well,
you hit your elbow and you do a WWE slam on their
Well, if
stomach,
you're
and then they fart.
putting a hole. Yeah, that does happen. I mean, I don't know. Not body
Minus the
slamming.
WWE.
I was
body
like, when your
slam.
body's
Not when I'm body slamming. No. Sometimes, but massaging does
Okay.
that. Does do that when I do the
Oh.
massage. Yeah. But when you're doing the trocar, there's sometimes usually pockets of gas because that's what
Yeah.
I mean.
Sure,
your body's
sure.
eating itself, so there's pockets of gas, and you see go, and then you instantly smell the smell.
Ew.
Yeah, that is the least.
I hate that here.
Yeah.
That's the worst olfactory portion of the job.
Yeah, I know because I would expect worse, but
Yeah.
again, I don't know. Okay, can cremated remains? Wait, hold on. Cremated remains can be made into stones and jewelry. Is there anything else they can be made into?
Yes. There are companies that make like glass type,
Okay.
like
Like a blown glass, like a vase, like an urn, a cup. Sounds like
yes, all those
Okay.
things. Like a paperweight or
Oh,
like
yeah.
fancy glass art.
Yes.
There
okay.
we go.
Yeah.
Where they'll use the cremated remains in addition to other colors, and you can see
Oh, okay. Yes.
spirals of the cremated remains and stuff.
So the only reason I know of that is because my mother asked me if I wanted some of my stepfather's
right.
ashes, and
Yeah.
she was going to do that for all of us. Was give that us like it's like a little globe, and it had like a light underneath or whatever. It's very cute. I like that. But yeah, okay. So is there other things though?
Yeah, an industry friend of mine just recently started her own business making keepsakes with cremated remains and resin.
Oh my gosh.
And I've seen some of her work, and it's really pretty. I don't know much about this particular aspect, but I've heard of tattoo artists using cremated remains in tattoo ink for memorial tattoos.
I have not heard that.
Crazy.
Yeah, I don't know.
How
I
that
don't
would
know
work.
anybody who does it. I don't know anything
Yeah.
particular about it. I just have heard it several times enough to go. Probably somebody
Okay.
does it. It wouldn't
Yeah.
surprise me.
Yeah.
And the last thing that kind of ties into the question that Laura Lee asked about the marine life and that kind of thing is it's not being made into exactly, but there's human-made reefs out in
I knew about that.
Florida where they use cremated remains to help build ecosystems.
Okay.
Like they have structures they've built.
Sure.
And they have or like vault type places for the urn to be if that's what you want, or people can scatter over it. But they've created this whole thing, and in 2012.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not laugh out loud because you said that there was like a human-made reef in Florida, and I'm like, Florida. I just imagine like cadavers just like underwater,
Well,
and only in fucking Florida.
Right. Coming from my home state, I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
I altered it from man-made to human-made, but then as I'm saying it, realizing, oh yeah.
I mean, it's all right.
Live people created structures as to help build ecosystems and
I love
create life.
Because coral reefs die, and they are dying, and we're trying to replenish them. But I love that. That's really cool.
And so now that's what I want to do with mine when I decided I was researching this. So thank you, Laura Lee.
Yeah, thank you so much. What about trees? How does that work? Do you know?
I don't know a whole lot. The only thing I do know in reading about cremated remains is the pH level is really high.
Okay.
So growth might not be easy, but I know there are forests and green burial places that will use your whole body as that. There's also places that that now do gross stuff, gross dirt. What's it called?
Compost.
Thank you. Composting.
Yeah.
There's now human composting in Oregon.
Cool.
And there's forests where they'll like create the mulch and
crazy. I think my ideal, honestly, is put my whole body just underneath a little tree and let me grow. That's what I want. Or shoot me into space. That's my other option.
A friend of mine, also in the industry, fairly recently started or left, I can't remember which, a new company in Oregon that started out doing that.
Oh my god, that's cool.
And as a side note, there's also this thing called alcohol hydrolysis.
Okay.
Where it's basically cremation with water.
Nope, don't like that.
I've heard of that.
What the?
Because I think I asked you about that some time ago because I heard about it. I was like, how does that work?
I don't know exactly. I know that it's not it's similar processes, but it's lots of goo left over in the end.
Is it less pollution?
I would imagine, but you're using water, so it depends. The pollution that there's.
Is there a lot? Like that's another question. I'm going to ask you all about pollution. So when you are cremating people, I don't know. I mean, because I know that you're technically, but it's an organic thing. Like, what is like pollution? Is it super high?
It's not super high, but it's very regulated by the EPA.
Okay.
So every month we have to submit information or every year, not every month. Every year submit information how many cremations we did, how long, like the general time people were cremated and all that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
But the fire in a cremation burns so hot that a lot of stuff is just gone.
Like incinerated.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Noted.
But there certainly is pollution, but...
Yeah, of course.
Right. So my next question is mortuary makeup always used when there's a viewing?
No.
Okay.
The end.
Well, that was very...
No.
So, I mean, because I know that I know that the makeup that you use is different from the makeup that living people use because it's warm skin versus cold skin.
Yes.
It's more like a heavier paint.
And it's oil-based.
Okay, makes sense.
So the short answer is no, not everybody. The longer answer is if somebody's involved, because there's kind of two separate viewing types that go on. There's embalmed viewing and non-embalmed viewing. Personally, if somebody is not embalmed, unless the family has provided their own cosmetic, I don't want to do it. I don't like doing it for a couple of reasons. One, I know this is going to sound silly, but it's a thing. Cross-contamination of cosmetics at my work with somebody who's not embalmed. So any bacteria they carry, because people are dead. But the
embalming gets rid of all the bacteria?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So cross-contamination that way, but of not only the mortuary cosmetic, but we do have some what I call drugstore cosmetic to separate the two distinctions. We do use some drugstore cosmetic, and also cross-contamination of that. That's one, and like safety-wise, that's my biggest thing. Mm-hmm. The other part is if they're not embalmed, mortuary cosmetic is made for firm, cold skin. Mm-hmm. Drugstore cosmetic is made for warm, pliable skin.
Of course.
A non-embalmed person is none of those things. Mm-hmm. They're cold, yes, but they're cold, clammy, and soft. So nothing of those two work together.
That's what I feel like all the time.
Cold, clammy, and soft.
Yeah. But obviously you're warm enough that cosmetic works for you.
I mean...
But I will, if family wants it done and they bring their own stuff, I will absolutely do it on the best I can, but because they're not structurally made to do those things, it doesn't look good, and I don't want to put something out there that I know isn't going to look good.
Right. Yeah.
On embalmed people, there's a difference between what you see on TV and Grandpa looking like a clown and what I do. Okay. Now, to put a caveat on anything that I say through this whole thing, this is my opinion about how I do my job, not anybody else does their thing. But I will put a cosmetic on everybody. Yeah. Unless family specifically says no cosmetic. And hopefully the funeral director on their end will educate, like, here's what we mean by cosmetic. Yeah. Traditional cosmetic, unless I'm given a picture where there's a lot of ornamental cosmetic, my cosmetic is just to bring them back up to a
living standard
ish, because it's never going to happen. They're dead.
No.
They're dead. They're embalmed. They're stiff. But the process of embalming takes out the blood, so the natural color variations that we have as living people is gone. Right. Even if we get great color back in through the embalming, the color variations aren't there. So. And sometimes there's graying because of the chemical reactions between formaldehyde and blood and blah blah blah. So using some cosmetics to just bring that color back in and to put warmth where it belongs. And what belongs, I put in quotes, but yeah. So I will do everybody unless a family has specifically said nothing. Yeah. And then I begrudgingly don't.
Okay.
Sad. Oh, me. Have you ever been startled by the deceased while working alone?
No. Most of my work with them is alone. Yeah. Especially now.
You've never been startled? I get startled when I work at Starbucks.
Like, right. In general, I'm not startled easily. Right. And certainly not by the dead. Which is not to say that sometimes I've been walking past and because of gravity and whatever, an arm falls off the arm block and smacks me in the butt. Oh. That's happened.
Getting brashed.
I know, right? And I tell them, like, excuse me.
You did not ask?
Right.
Non-consensual touching? Interesting.
There have been instances of not the deceased doing something specific, but if the pressure buildup, if there's been, how graphic do you want me to get?
It's up to you.
Okay. If there's pressure built up once I've opened the vein, like a blood clot is kind of sitting there, and I'm like massaging, trying to push and push the flow. Right. If a clot releases, sometimes it can go whoosh.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I've been splattered, the floor's been splattered. If the trocar backs up, like it gets stuck. And you don't catch it, which thank God I'm really good at it because I can hear the differences in the sounds. Oh. But it will reverse flow to clear out that, and if you leave it in, it puts the water back in.
No.
If you take it out and not the right, it goes.
Oh my God! Nope.
Which I've had happen all over the walls.
Okay, listen, and I get that. I guess it makes sense. That's like that's like the same reason that people aren't afraid of we're not afraid of cemeteries. People didn't die there, right? People are just buried there.
And no, they don't do anything.
I know. Let me tell you, the very first time that I ever walked through, it was at your old job, and it was where, I don't know what you call it, the embalming room, the room where everyone was.
The dressing room.
Right? And I walk through, and I'm a teenager at this point.
The dressing room.
Early 20s. And I'm walking, and there's just like a multiple people, and I had been to a number of funerals. I'd seen many dead people, but not so many at one time. Right. And not ones that just looked like they were sleeping, right? And so I just remember being like, Just look straight and keep walking, feeling kind of like, I need to get out of here. Like, there are too many people in this room, and none of them are even looking at me. You know, it was just very weird. It was very unsettling initially, because you expect to look, and they're going to make subtle movements, like breathing or sleeping, you know?
Right.
But
it's funny that you talk about how there's too many people in the room. I have this rule at work. If the ratio to live people to dead people in the area where I work is off kilter, if there's more than 3 live people, I tap out.
My
coworkers have heard me say, I'm out.
Yeah.
I will leave if there's too many live people. I can't. It's just too much.
So there can be 45 dead people, but 3 live people, he's out.
Sometimes it's 2, depending on who it is.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Like if Ashlyn and Ariel are back there, ugh.
Hate them.
They're the worst.
They're the worst. Hate mail, cursing, I hex your family.
I know for me that the first time I did hair on a dead person, which is trippy. Yeah. Because their scalp doesn't move. And it's like somebody glued a wig to a statue is what it feels like. Because they're ice cold. They feel like marble. Whatever, and they're laying down, and cutting hair lying down is always tricky.
So there's not all that body heat to not do anything.
It was on a day where I was there with him, of course, and he was doing whatever, but it was a day where everybody else was off. And so I'm cutting hair, and there's whatever, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go, he went to get something. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there cutting, and I finished, and I look around, and I'm like, I'm in this stone still quiet room with 20 dead people and just me, and he's the only other live person in the building is now nowhere to be seen. No. Like, I don't like it here. I want out. And it was the only time I really felt that way, but it was just because it was new. I mean, I've been around a lot of dead people. I've been to a million funerals.
It is still unsettling. Whether it's scary or not scary, they died there or not. It's still like an unsettling feeling. Right. And I think that's different than being scared, right?
Sure.
It is just like, where else are you going to be in a room with this many dead people?
Right.
You know, like, when? Not until you're dead, probably. You know, like...
Right. Well, fair.
Yeah. Unless there's some horrible accident, girl. But honestly, there's not many times that we're surrounded by dead people.
Right.
Other than
me.
Other than what you do for a living, right. But, like, if you weren't an embalmer or worked in the funeral industry, I wouldn't be in a room full of dead people.
Mm-mm. All right. And on that note, a break is happening.
Wait, before you continue, I need to say something that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it's your anniversary. Do you know that? Today's your anniversary.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
I know.
As of this day, we have been married for 19 years.
I know, and together 20?
Together 20. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
God. My whole
next year, we will have literally been together for half of his life.
Oh my God. And my entire life.
Of mine because I'm old.
But I'm only 21.
Wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll go with that story. Well, since we were talking about that last little road we were on, what did you have to do to become an embalmer? What kind of training, what kind of schooling?
For me, particularly, because different states have different laws. Side note, Colorado doesn't have licensing requirements.
What?
Isn't that weird?
So how do you become an embalmer?
Is it Canada?
Is it just training?
Ireland.
Ireland. Is it just training?
Ireland.
Like apprenticeship?
I don't really know, but Colorado's like, whatever. You just do what you want to do. That's fine.
Weird.
It's very strange.
That seems like a bad plan.
Yeah, depending on the countries and the states and all of it, there's different laws everywhere. I'm licensed in both Oregon and Washington as a funeral director and an embalmer.
It's interesting you have to be licensed as a funeral director, right? I just feel like that feels interesting to me. It's not like a science, is it? It's not like an embalmer where
It's not, but there's a crap ton of law that you have to know, and
that makes sense.
Find like little nuances and Federal Trade Commission, because they have their thumb on the funeral industry, which I get. People have screwed up many times, and still do.
That's interesting.
Anyway, so for an embalmer specifically, in most states, you have to have at least 2 years of schooling. So an associate's degree in mortuary science. You have to take a national board exam, which is like 300 and some change questions about all the stuff you've learned in your 2 years of
Did you find it difficult? Or did you feel prepared for it? Because
Well, it's me.
Right, so
so I was going to fail, of course, all of it.
Yeah. Sure.
Though...
And then you did it.
I didn't at all.
Right,
And
of course not.
didn't ever talk about what I made because people who were talking about what the scores they got were lower than mine.
Yeah.
And I was then embarrassed that I did better, so I didn't say a word.
God, how we're so different.
Typical my husband, because even going into college, he was so nervous that he was going to fail.
Yeah.
That he would never make it through, the whatever. And of course, he's, on the honor roll, on the national honor roll, and on the dean's list.
Yeah.
Because he's stupid.
And then you're like, but don't talk about it, because I don't want to make these people feel bad.
Right.
I love it.
And
so opposite, you're right, from us, where we'd be like, I got the highest score ever of the history
my
of this
GPA
test.
That would be me.
so there's that part, and then you have to take a law test
Okay.
for whatever state you're in. So the national board exam, with the exception of California, is good at any state.
Okay.
That was what's called the national board exam. So
Okay.
It's a test that will transfer over to any state you go to.
Okay.
As an embalmer. Then each state has their own law stuff that you have to take and pass.
Got it.
Oregon traditionally has been a really, really, really difficult test.
Really?
Most people fail multiple times
Interesting.
when they take the test. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's kind of expected. Another instance where I was like, well, of course I'm going to fail.
Yeah, sure.
And I didn't, and I got a very high score, and again, didn't say a word to anybody.
Do you remember your score?
Yes.
What was it?
To say no.
It was a long time ago.
Come
You
on,
tell
it was
us now.
150
It
years
was
ago.
98%.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
And
insane.
on the national board exam, you have to. So this is different, but national board exam, you have to get 75%
Okay.
to pass.
Okay.
So all mortuary school, that was our grade. Our C was 75%, unlike 70, which is most.
Yeah.
So everything was shifted so that we had that expectation
That you have to at least get a
You
75.
have to get at least 75.
Yeah.
I have my national board exam somewhere. I did
Yeah.
much better on the sciences and the arts, but it was
Interesting.
90. I think it was like 98 and 96 or
Yeah.
something.
So practically failure.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Loser.
Anyway, so you have to do that, and in Oregon, you have to do at least 1 year of an apprenticeship, and embalm X amount of bodies. That changes. It's changed since I started. It was 45 when I started. I think it's now 35 or 25. I don't know. So at least a year, but you have up to 4 years to get your time in.
Okay.
Washington State has different laws. It's a 2-year requirement, but their expectation of what an embalming, what that entails,
Yeah.
like how many bodies that you come in contact with and work on,
Yeah.
their requirements are much looser than Oregon. Oregon's like an embalming report, like a full embalming.
Wow.
Washington's got like putting on PPE and setting
right.
features and that kind of thing. So it's
Interesting.
very different.
Yeah.
Not that they're related, but being Oregon State laws and tests and stuff. When I did my test to be a hairdresser, Oregon is much stricter than Washington, California, anywhere else, and you have to have more education. Mm-hmm. So, and by the way, I got the highest test score of anyone in my class. So.
All right, so family of geniuses is what I'm hearing.
Just saying.
And
by the way, I, unlike my husband, bragged
to everyone was like,
endlessly.
"Oh, what did you get? Oh, you didn't take it? Fucking
well,
loser."
because when the woman who ran my school was, because when we took our test, we weren't quite done. You still have a little bit more to do. But I came back in and she was like, "Did you pass?" Because so many people fail. The biggest one that you have to pass is safety, sanitation, and health. They don't really give a shit if you know how to cut hair.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that if you cut someone,
Yeah.
you know how to deal with the blood
Yeah.
and the sanitation
Lawsuits.
and all that, and lawsuits, whatever. And so she goes, "Oh, okay, how'd you do? Everyone has a rough time with this one." And I was like, I had got 99%. And she was like, "What?" And I was like,
No, you
"Yeah,
didn't."
I did. I got 90." And she was like, "Nobody gets 99%. Well, I did.
Well, bitch, I did. Shut
I
up.
did, so, anyway.
It makes me think though, like the different laws and stuff. Because I have a former friend of mine is an electrologist, and she made good money, and she was like, "You should do it too." But I was like, "But I have to go to school. I still need to work, and going to like a beauty school is different. You know, it's a lot more because you actually have to be there in person,
Right.
And I don't want to." And so she was like, "Well, I'll just open like an office in Vancouver because you don't need to go to school. You just need to be an apprentice, and I can teach you, and then you just have to take the exam." And I thought, bitch, okay. But then we had a falling out because she's a dumb bitch. But, you know, it happens. But anyway, yeah, so that's interesting to me that, like, even just you can cross the fucking river and Washington's all, "What up? You know how to do things and you're hired." And then Oregon's like, no, go to school for 50 years,
Right.
and then maybe you can touch a hair.
And then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, right?
All right, well, since she's having a drink, I'll ask the next question.
Fine.
This is kind of my favorite question, though, is have you had any cases that made you question your career choice?
Your sanity.
That's different.
No, which I think is weird.
Yeah.
But this industry and my job, on a very serious note, is like it soothes my soul.
Yeah.
Like working with the people that I get to work with, the dead people. Some of the live people are alright too.
Yeah.
No, that's not actually my current crew that I work with. They're amazing. I am ridiculously
great, though.
happy.
Yeah.
I love working with all of them. Well, except for one.
Ash, because she's the worst.
Yeah.
Trashland.
Trash. That's right.
Trash.
Yes, by far the worst. No, anyway, there haven't been, and whether that be like the emotional aspect of my job or the technical aspect, the emotional aspect, I am a
Fortress.
pretty much
Yeah.
of emotional dissociation. I worked at the Humane Society where I had to put down animals, like.
Nope.
But I've realized in myself I have this veil that I can put down where it doesn't let stuff in, but it lets stuff out.
Okay, yeah.
So like if I'm working on somebody that had a tragic ending, or they're of a marginalized group and it was a tragic ending,
Yeah.
which I've had many of.
Yeah.
I allow much more of my caring and my love out,
Yeah.
so they feel that while I'm working with them. And I get hours with them, so we get lots of bonding time. But on the flip side of that, there's people that I've worked on that, if I initially think about it, I'm angry at them for whatever the choices they've made that got them on my table. And then I'm like, you know what? No, this is not my place. I'm here to take care of them and make sure they get the best care possible. And so I have to put up, some more layers of that curtain to keep the caring, keep the anger out, but to keep the caring going.
Because at that point, you're just like an intermediary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're the person who's preparing them for later, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it's not your place to throw that judgment on them. Which I kind of love that. That's great. You're like, everyone comes through me.
Yeah,
you know?
I care about them very much, and I see myself as somewhat of a guardian. I actually had a woman at a funeral who I never talked to, never met. I was covering somebody's service, who came up to me and said that to me. She is very religious, very, God.
Yeah.
Which, great. Do your thing. But she came up to me and she's like, I can see that you are a guardian of the dead. Like you.
Ooh, we need to get your nameplate, Guardian of the Dead. I like it.
Well, but that also ties into like every tattoo you have of like the gods of death, essentially.
And on the technical aspect, I had a fantastic foundation that of two people who I love and absolutely adore, Natalie and Glenn, taught me everything I know, and I carry them with me while I do my job. I think of both of them almost every day while I'm working. So I have this like great foundation. Is it difficult sometimes?
Sure.
Absolutely. Do I often think, I'm not going to be able to figure out how to do this? Yes. Do I usually figure out how to do it? Yes.
Yeah.
So no, I don't question my job. It's where I belong.
Yeah. That's crazy. For a long time, I thought I wanted to be a death doula because, it's like doulas for birth, but death doula because, like, again, growing up, I was around it so much that I felt like, well, I'm already around it. Like, why not? I don't know now. I'm too sensitive. I'm too delicate for the earth, so who knows if I can do anything. Anyway, this is the last question from Laura Lee. And this says, what is the most important issue the family of the deceased face when planning a funeral / celebration of life? And I know there's probably different things depending on culture, religion, belief system, but what have you noticed, I would say, the most important issue for a family?
I know this is going to seem like, I don't know, not as in-depth and as, like, mind-blowing or whatever.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest things consistently across the board is the legally allowed person making the arrangements.
Okay.
Like, that is huge. Because if you're not the legal person, nothing can happen. No matter, you can go through the court order stuff and whatever, but every state has little tweaks on who can make decisions and who can't.
Yeah.
And what order that is. But that is the biggest issue that I see. And I hear it constantly with the funeral directors. So what I'd say is making sure that if you are making your pre-arrangements, making sure that you are writing out doing pre-arrangements, because that way what you want is on paper, and then basically your next door neighbor could come in and sign stuff.
Well, and that's the thing about pre-arrangements, right? So pre-arrangements is where people go and they're living, and they go and they set up for what happens when they pass, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people do that, right? I don't think a lot of people know, because I wouldn't have known again if you hadn't worked in the industry, and we had to go mock pre-arrangement and mock make arrangements for it.
That was so fun.
That was so much fun. But that's interesting, yeah. So is pre-arrangements... Well, okay. So my question is will pre-arrangements, like, what is written there, like who takes care of what or who's in charge of what, will that be more binding than like a power of attorney, or like, do you know what I mean?
I love that you bring up power of attorney, because that is the part of the situation that most people think, hey, I have POA, power of attorney POA.
Yeah.
I have POA, I can do whatever. Most power of attorney paperwork ends at death.
Interesting. Okay.
There has to be, and I don't understand all that goes into writing them. I have no idea why this is often missed.
Okay.
Because it is very often missed.
Weird.
There has to be a specific clause that says such and such can make final disposition arrangements.
Interesting.
Because there's usually a clause in there that says this ends at death.
Yeah.
Whether it's a durable power of attorney or a medical power of attorney, doesn't matter. So if you're doing a POA or you're going to make a POA or whatever, make sure that clause is in there. Tell your attorney, if you're writing it yourself, make sure you put it in there.
Yes.
Some funeral homes have a form that you can write that says how you sign who you want to make your arrangement.
Yeah. And I think that's important too. I think I think that you should get a power of attorney, a durable power of attorney, a medical power of attorney, get a will. You know what I mean? Like
will too, because if most states, the written instrument supersedes anything.
So like the will would supersede everything?
Anything written down
interesting.
that says this is what I want.
Interesting. Okay.
So like a pre-arrangement would be a written instrument.
Got it.
That's like the end all be all.
So I think people, everyone, you're coupled, you're in a relationship, this country's scary, the world is scary. Go get all your documentation.
Yeah.
To make sure.
Absolutely.
And make sure there are clauses in there that your partner can do what they need to do for you once you've passed.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important, and more because who knows what's going to be invalidated soon by the government, So we just have to protect ourselves as people.
Yeah. So I would say that is the biggest issue that I see our funeral directors, and of course then families are then stressed out and angry at us because we can't go forward. It's like, we have a law.
And you're already on so much stress already. You're dealing with like your dead loved one, and now you have to I can't make decisions. That would be upsetting. Nope.
Well, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to skip to my very last question.
Oh my god, okay.
Which is, what is the strangest request you have received from a family?
I'm not going to answer that I'm sure the way folks want me to.
Okay.
Strange is very subjective.
Yeah.
And it dismisses the complexities of grief.
Sure.
Which is ridiculous. I mean, grief, I've seen it affect people in so many ways.
Yeah.
Some people in death, they're something that the deceased loved in life, their loved ones might bring to put it in the casket with them or have cremated with them.
And something that, out of context, people would be that's different.
Yeah. Like one, as far as a one-off situation that I've only seen once, never seen again, was somebody brought in a can of green beans.
Huh.
And I was like, okay.
All right.
But I've seen like pet cremated remains. I've seen like pictures and drawings and little trinkets and all sorts of things.
But no one's asked you to do the hokey pokey while doing it, or
no. Okay. But we have had somebody who it was desperately important that as their loved one was being transferred to the crematory, that people tell stupid jokes.
Oh my god. Okay, cute.
So the whole way, I wasn't part of it, but the whole way the funeral director and the crematory operator, were as they were walking and loading them into the crematory, were telling them dad jokes.
I fucking love that. That is so cute.
Yeah.
Who's thinking outside the box now, Gary?
I had a scenario. There's two different stories. One that I wasn't requested of me specifically, but this woman wanted to be buried on her left side because her and her husband had bought dual plots together, but they had been divorced.
Oh,
I see your sad face getting
I know.
already.
I thought it was going to be so they could face
Face
each
each
other.
other.
And
No,
no, she
it's
wanted her
because
back
she
to him.
wanted her back to him.
I
I'm
love
about
that.
it. Yeah.
Petty all the way to
Yes,
the end. I love
bitch.
that.
And the request that I was made that I've never had before or since was a specific way to position somebody's arms.
Huh.
Because they were apparently through axes in life.
Okay.
And so they wanted their arms crossed like this so they could hold their axes.
Oh, that's metal. Are they Vikings? That's the coolest shit I've ever seen.
that.
I want to be married with axes too.
Yeah, I haven't had many, like, position my loved one this way, but now that there's all these, like, put them on a motorcycle, playing video games, I don't want.
Or you just put some like wire in me and bend me with like axes.
So we're going to have you taxidermy.
I can't fucking wait.
stand in the corner with Mona, because...
Yeah. Oh, or take the place of Mona, since you're both
Oh my
the
God.
same color. So
This is
taste.
true.
For the next 40 years, I'll be there.
So unfortunately, that is
Now it's time
that's
to
it.
say goodbye
But I am so excited that we had our
our
first
company.
guest. So
I know. Woo! It was a good time. Oh, see?
Yeah, it was such a good
The
time.
people loved it.
And the people have spoken. They're very happy. They're very excited. The computer people. Well, they're very important people. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
so much.
It's so hard for me to actually call you by your name.
Your name.
Yeah, don't.
It's
I don't.
weird.
So-
Mr. T. That's who that
T.
person is. She's
Well,
like, I
'cause
can't say it.
I know because I'm always like Papa
Her-
or Poppy or whatever.
Her lips sealed.
No,
She's
I
like,
know.
"Oh, help me.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this, and
Thanks for thinking of
getting
me.
over your nervousness to do it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you did great. And also, I learned some shit.
Me
And I
too.
feel like, what else could I learn about funeral industry? I'm so knowledgeable.
Well, get more questions.
Oh my God, we'll do a part
So
2.
you'll do this again?
Sure.
All right, I love that. So listen, if you have questions that you didn't get answered, you can feel free to send those to us or the hate mail that you're going to send for whatever reason. And Astra, I'm talking to you.
She wouldn't do such a thing.
No.
It would seem as though at gmail.com. Also, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about us, tell your enemies about us. Go to your church and pass out flyers with our.
Oh my God, what a
we want all
dream.
the
We should
all the
start
Christians
doing that.
to listen
Oh
to
my
us.
God, what a dream.
We'll tell them it's about God and religion, and they'll listen and be all pissed off, and we'll have a good laugh. at it.
LOL.
Yeah. Anyway, so that is it for this week. Another, it would seem as though, is done.
Yeah.
And we look forward to hearing from you. So, drop us a line.
Yeah. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
It would seem as though.